Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today the topic of presentation is retinoblastoma. So the content of the disease is like the incidence of the retinoblastoma, the pathological feature of the retinoblastoma, diagnosis of the retinoblastoma, screening, clinical presentation, history, physical examination, fundus examination, and diagnostic procedure of the retinoblastoma, differential diagnosis of the retinoblastoma, and different treatment option of retinoblastoma. In introduction, retinoblastoma is the most common intraocular malignant tumor of the pediatric age group. The incidence of 1:14 to 1:20,000 live birth, and it is equally common in both sexes and no racial predilection. Retinoblastoma is a neuroblastic tumor and therefore biologically similar to the neuroblastoma and medulloblastoma. The tumor can be unilateral or bilateral. 30 to 40% of cases are bilateral. Retinoblastoma is typically diagnosed during the first year of life in the familial or bilateral cases, and between the age of 1 to 2 or 3 year of age in sporadic unilateral cases. Approximately 90% of cases are diagnosed before the 3 year of age. Onset later than age 5 year are rare and can occur. The most common initial sign is leukocoria, followed by the strabismus, and the less common presentation are the vitreous hemorrhage, hyphema, ocular or periocular inflammation, glaucoma, proptosis, and pseudohypopyon. If you look at the pathological feature of the retinoblastoma cells, which are small and stained blue with hematoxylin and eosine stain. Rings of cells surrounded an empty lumen are known as Flexner-Wittner-Steiner rosettes. They are characteristic but not mandatory to make the diagnosis of retinoblastoma. Homer writes pseudorosettes, a ring of cells within a xenophilic fibrillary center, are also commonly found. Florets are retinoblastoma cells that have undergone greater photoreceptor differentiation. Calcification is common in these tumors. Necrosis is also very common and occur when the tumor outgrows its vascular supply, and necrotic cells appears pink and on hematoxylin and eosine staining. Now come to the screening purpose. The American Academy of Pediatric policy statement on red reflex examination in neonates, infants, and children recommends that all neonates, infants, and children should have an exam of the red reflex before discharging from the neonatal nursery and at all subsequent routine health supervisor visits. Red reflex test is performed in a dimly light or dark room with direct ophthalmoscope or retinoscope from the distance of about 1 or 1.5 feet from the patient. Leukocoria, whitening of the red pupil reflex, is the most common presentation of retinoblastoma, and all infants or children with an abnormal red reflex require immediate referral to an ophthalmologist skilled in pediatric examination. Newborn screening is a greatest utility in offspring and sibling of the patient with retinoblastoma. Offspring and siblings of affected patients require regular screening examination in childhood. Genetic counseling for families with non-retinoblastoma can help to determine whether other family members are at risk for developing the disease. Now come to the clinical presentation of the patient with retinoblastoma. The early diagnosis of retinoblastoma can maximize the patient visual prognosis as well as survival rate. Retinoblastoma must always be in the differential diagnosis for any child who present with strabismus, leukocoria, red eye, or cellulitis-like picture. Retinoblastoma is the most important differential diagnosis for the child with leukocoria or white pupillary reflex. The white pupillary reflex is the loss of the red reflex is secondary to this tumor filling the globe. Strabismus can also be presenting sign of retinoblastoma, so all patients undergoing a strabismus evaluation should also receive a dilated fundoscopic examination. In rare cases, retinoblastoma can present with pain and inflammation and have a similar presentation to endophthalmitis, uveitis, hemorrhage, preseptal or orbital cellulitis. This more occur when the tumor has spread outside the globe, portending poor prognosis. Retinoblastoma can demonstrate local spread along with the optic nerve directly into the orbit and can also metastatic hematologically to bone, liver, brain and other organs of the body. Now come for the detailed history of the patient with retinoblastoma, a careful history of present illness, family history of blindness, eye tumor, childhood malignancies or enucleation. A family history of other cancers such as sarcoma may also be suggestive. The parent should be asked if either leukocoria or strabismus have been observed. If known, the duration of time from discovery of leukocoria reflex to presentation in the ophthalmologist's office should be documented. The result of any ancillary testing done prior to the ophthalmologist initially consultation with the family should be obtained. Now come to the physical examination of the patient with retinoblastoma. Age appropriate visual acuity testing should be performed monocularly. External examination should rule out proptosis, other sign of orbital cellulitis. Slit lamp examination should look for the ciliary injection, pseudohypopyon, iris neovascularization and or secondary glaucoma. The presence or absence of afferent pupillary defect should be determined. As mentioned earlier, dilated fundus examination is critical. If there is any suspicion for retinoblastoma, the patient should undergo an examination under general anesthesia. An examination under anesthesia with careful scleral depression to evaluate the entire retina is necessary to confirm the diagnosis of retinoblastoma as well as to determine the extent, location and extent of the tumor or tumors and the stages of the diseases. Photographic documentation for future comparison is recommended. Complete retinal examination of both eyes is necessary to rule out bilateral disease. On fundus examination, retinoblastoma classically present with one or multiple nodular, white or creamy colored masses, often associated with increased vascularization. There are two primary clinical patterns of retinoblastoma growth. If the tumor grows interiorly into the vitreous, is known as endophatic tumor. This form of retinoblastoma often shows vitreous seeding, which causes vitreous haze and opacities. This can eventually progress to involve the interior chamber and can cause secondary glaucoma and inflammation. When the tumor show a growth pattern more posteriorly and extend beneath the retina or subretinal, it is described as an exophatic tumor. This tumor can cause exudative retinal detachment and may be associated with subsequent subretinal seeding. The diagnostic procedure for the patient with retinoblastoma, A scan and B scan ultrasonography should be performed. The ultrasound will help define the tumor height and thickness as well as to confirm the association of the retinal detachment and calcification. Retinoblastoma with enough volume will often appear of or hypercoic masses with the calcium and posterior shadowing on the B-scan ultrasonography. CT scan can be help to demonstrate the presence or absence of the calcium deposit and help define the size of the tumor. Magnetic resonance image or MRI is often performed to evaluate the optic nerve involvement, extraocular extension, and also to consider for the possibility of the concomitant primitive neuroectodermal tumor or trilateral retinoblastoma with pineloblastoma. MRI is currently the preferred imaging modality for the most clinicians because of the radiation associated with CT scan. High dose of radiation can be harmful to all young children, but especially to those patient population where the heritable germline retinoblastoma patients are especially at increased risk of secondary tumor. Bone marrow examination or lumbar puncture may also be performed in the patient where there is concern regarding the extent of disease, particularly in extraocular extension to rule out CSF or bone marrow metastasis. Now come to the differential diagnosis of the retinoblastoma or white pupillary reflex are the congenital cataract, Coats disease, retinopathy of prematurity, toxocariasis, coloboma, vitreous hemorrhage, myelated retinal nerve fiber or other retinal tumor, or persistent hyperplastic primary vitreous or persistent fetal vasculature syndrome. The genetics and terminology of the patient with retinoblastoma: if the first mutation occur in the germ line cells, egg or sperm before conception, the patient has heritable retinoblastoma because the patient has inherited the first retinoblastoma mutation from the mother or father, and subsequently the patient may pass on this retinoblastoma mutation through the patient's own germ line. The heritable form of retinoblastoma may be passed from the parents to children through germline mutation. The germline cases represent approximately 1/3 of retinoblastoma cases. Patients with germline disease tend to have a bilateral and multifocal tumors, but may more rarely have a unilateral disease. They also have a significant increased risk of secondary tumor, including primitive neuroendocrine tumor in the brain is called trilateral retinoblastoma with pineloblastoma. Finally, their offspring will have an increased risk to develop retinoblastoma as their trait is transmitted as an autosomal dominant fashion with the high penetrating 90%. If the first and subsequent second retinoblastoma gene mutation occur in a somatic cell of the developing retina and cause intraocular retinoblastoma, while that patient germline cell have a normal retinoblastoma gene, such patient's retinoblastoma is not heritable and not germline, but rather somatic or sporadic. Most unilateral tumors are sporadic and non-hereditary, but this is not always the case. About 15% of unilateral cases occur in individuals who have germline mutations. In addition, some patients may present initially with unilateral disease but subsequent progress to bilateral involvement. Thus, determining whether the initial mutation is germline is important in the clinical management of these patients, and regular and thorough examination of both eyes are mandatory. Patient with the genetically detected retinoblastoma gene mutation have a greater risk of other malignancies later in life and require more vigilant screening for new retinoblastoma activity in both eyes, as well as periodic MRI screening for primitive neuroendocrine tumor activity. These patients with the genetically detected retinoblastoma mutation also have a 50% chance of passing the retinoblastoma gene mutation as an heritable retinoblastoma for each child they have conceived. For the germline positive cases, family member may also be considered for the testing to assess retinoblastoma associated risk in each family member. Patient with the no genetically detected retinoblastoma mutation or retinoblastoma gene mutation may have a risk similar to the general population of other cancer later in life. These patients with the negative retinoblastoma gene genetic test do not require retinoblastoma re-examination of the follow-up non-normal eye with such frequency as those with the positive retinoblastoma gene genetic tests, but should have a routine eye exams or examination per standard care. Now come to the classification system. We have two commonly used classification system for intraocular retinoblastoma: the Rees-Ellsworth classification system and the International classification of retinoblastoma. In 1990s, the preferred treatment modality shifted from external beam radiation to chemotherapy due to the increased risk of secondary tumors following radiation in the patient with retinoblastoma. The clinicians found the Rees-Ellsworth classification system no longer accurately reflected prognosis with the newer treatment modalities. In this, international classification of retinoblastoma was developed to better predict those with the intraocular retinoblastoma who are likely to be cured without the need of for enucleation or external beam radiation. Now come for the management, the general treatment. Spontaneous regression of retinoblastoma occurs but in rare. The priorities in the treatment of retinoblastoma are to preserve the life, preserve the globe, and preserve the vision. In the specific order, minimize the side effect and complication of treatment are also a paramount importance in these very young childs or patient. Enucleation remain the definite treatment of intraocular retinoblastoma, particularly in the majority of patients who present with unilateral disease. However, the loss of an eye is associated with significant social stigma in a certain culture. In addition, bilateral enucleation is a devastating option for bilateral affected patients. Treatment modality that may be successful in globe salvage, including systemic chemotherapy with focal consolidation, intra-arterial chemotherapy, intravitreal chemotherapy, and some small tumor focally destruction therapy, cryotherapy, or laser photocoagulation, hyperthermia with plaque radiation. Radiation therapy is avoided if possible, but still has a role to preserve the vision in the recurrent tumor. In follow-up, patients who undergone any form of eye-sparing treatment like external beam radiation, chemo reduction, need frequent follow-up examination. Tumor regression is followed closely. Documentation about the appearance, size, location, and number of tumors during each examination. When tumor regress after treatment, it can appear as a white calcific mass or appear translucent and resemble the fish flesh appearance. Sometimes a flat scar or even no remnant of retinoblastoma is left behind after treatment. A typical schedule would require examinations under general anesthesia every 6 to 8 weeks until the age of 3 years, followed by less frequent examination. If the disease become quiescent, the patient with the hereditary retinoblastoma are at increased lifetime risk of development secondary malignancy throughout the body. The most common secondary tumor is osteosarcoma. The other tumor is including the pineloblastoma, fibrosarcoma, and melanoma. Patients who have been treated with radiation are at a high risk of secondary tumor. In the field of tumor treatment, long-term follow-up of all retinoblastoma patient is mandatory, with the special vigilance if patient have a germline mutation. I am thankful to all of you for your patience and support. Stay blessed. Allah Hafiz.